Share the body warmth. Not as cold as it could be, but we need to bring ourselves together. Assuming I'm paying attention. I'd like to welcome everybody to State Street, that great street. My name is Joe Miller. I'm one of the national coordinators of Vietnam Veterans Against the War, and I guess we should recognize the fact that this event is opening the week that President Bush has called for Veteran Awareness Week. Aren't we all happy about that? We're all veterans. We have to be veterans. We have to be aware. I guess that means we have to be awake. One thing I would like to point out in connection with that, there are veterans across the country that are making a real effort to get into schools, to talk to young people about what it means to be a veteran, what it means to go to war. Vietnam Veterans Against the War members and supporters should be doing that. And if you possibly can get into schools this next week or any time, we'd like to know about it. We'd like to have you share your experiences. To get us started, I'm going to read from the press release that went out today just to kind of give you a sense of why we're here. This is, first of all, this is the 30th Veterans Day event that VVAW is holding. We've been holding these events, these alternative Veterans Day events, since 1971. As the press release reads, for 30 years VVAW has held Veterans Day activities in Chicago, opposing wars from Vietnam to the Persian Gulf. We were the first to expose Agent Orange and demand treatment for PTSD. We help feed homeless, vets, and fight to keep the VAs open. And we'll let the fire service pass. This year we are rallying around the demand, justice, not war. We want the perpetrators of the World Trade Center terrorism acts to be brought to justice. If not, they will do it again. But September 11th is not a blank check for war, nor do carpet bombings, excuse me, it's area bombings now. They don't use carpet bombings, it's area bombings. Carpet bombings do not meet the standards of international norms and justice. One of the U.S. government's most moving pieces of propaganda involved the killing of a 2-year-old child killed at the World Trade Center. It had power and it made sense to us. But do we think that the Afghanis will react differently when their innocent 2-year-olds are killed? The U.S. is waging $1 billion a year war in Colombia and aligning itself with military with death squads that even the United Nations admits commit 90% of the massacres in that poor country. It's obscene to condemn terrorists in Afghanistan while paying for them in Colombia. That's why we're here today, folks. We need to think about this. Now, our first speaker this morning is Edgar Paiz, Director of International Affairs, Sinal Tranial, who will talk about the oppression and physical terror that Coca-Cola uses to intimidate workers who try to unionize. Edgar.
Muy buenos días para todos los compañeros y las compañeras.
I'd like to wish all you compañeros y compañeras good morning.
Mi nombre es Edgar Paiz y hago parte en Colombia de la campaña contra la impunidad Colombia Clama Justicia.
My name is Edgar Paiz. I'm part of a campaign which is called Stop Impunity, Colombia Demands Justice.
De alguna manera el pueblo de Colombia también somos veteranos de la guerra, de una guerra fratricida que durante 50 años hemos vivido todos los colombianos.
In one sentiment, the people from Colombia are veterans of war. A war that has been taking place for 50 years and has damaged and injured many people.
Hemos vivido 50 años luchando contra la opresión y contra la explotación de nuestros recursos en general, y esto ha causado que desde los Estados Unidos el gobierno venga actualmente implementando un plan de guerra llamado Plan Colombia.
So for the past 50 years, we've been struggling against the oppression against our people and the exploitation of our natural resources. And now we are living through a plan implemented by the United States, a plan of war called Plan Colombia.
Es una guerra que en los últimos años se ha venido implementando de una manera supremamente criminal con el fin de poder colocar nuestros territorios para una fácil explotación de las empresas transnacionales.
This Plan Colombia, Plan of War, is nothing more than a plan that allows for the easy exploitation of multinationals and transnational corporations of our resources and people.
El Tratado de Libre Comercio para las Américas va a ser un tratado que profundice mucho más la dependencia económica, política, militar y cultural hacia el gran país del norte.
The proposed free trade agreement, which would open up Latin America, would only serve to decrease our economic, our political, our freedom, much more dependence upon the United States, and affect our sovereignty.
Somos un pueblo que lucha contra la guerra porque queremos vivir en paz con justicia social.
We want to struggle against the war. We do struggle against the war because we're looking for culture, we're looking for peace, and we're looking for justice.
Las fuerzas militares del Estado, al igual que los grupos paramilitares, han sido entrenados en la Escuela de las Américas para seguir asesinando y masacrando nuestro pueblo.
Those Colombians that have been trained, over 10,000 at this point, Colombian troops that have been trained in the School of Americas, have been trained to kill, have been trained to massacre, both militaries and paramilitaries in our country.
Nuestro pueblo de Colombia y sus comunidades somos solidarios con los hechos ocurridos el pasado 11 de septiembre en Nueva York.
We are united with the peoples of the United States in the pain that you've experienced from the events that happened on September 11th.
Los hechos de terror vividos por estas comunidades son iguales a los que nosotros durante 50 años hemos venido viviendo y sufriendo a lo largo y ancho del país.
And I should say that the terrorist acts committed here in the United States are equal, if not very similar, to the terrorist acts that have been committed in our country for the past 50 years.
La guerra en nuestro país ha dejado cerca de 3 millones de desplazados.
The war in our country has forcibly displaced close to 3 million people.
Se han cometido miles de masacres en nombre de la libertad y contra el narcotráfico.
It is a war being carried out in the name of against the war, the supposed war on drugs.
Son muchas las viudas, muchos los niños huérfanos, muchos los hombres que hoy se encuentran en estados lamentables de salud víctimas de la guerra fratricida.
So it has left many victims, many orphans, many widows.
Por eso continuamos luchando y continuamos siendo solidarios en este gran movimiento antiglobalización y contra la guerra.
For this reason, we are united in solidarity against the actions of the United States and against plans like globalization.
A través de las transnacionales como la Coca-Cola, la Occidental Petroleum Company, la DOL y muchas otras transnacionales se nos ha venido imponiendo la guerra fratricida.
United against transnational multi-corporations like Coca-Cola, like Occidental Petroleum, and the abuses they brought, we continue to struggle.
Estas transnacionales se han beneficiado por las múltiples masacres que se han venido viviendo en nuestro país, ya que se ha colocado en un terreno muy propicio para continuar explotando nuestros recursos y nuestra mano de obra de nuestros obreros.
So these multinational corporations have been the direct beneficiary of these massacres and all the civilian atrocities because it allows them to gain easier access to exploit human and capital resources in Colombia.
La mejor forma de apoyar la lucha antiglobalización es dando una lucha permanente y de denuncia contra las políticas de las transnacionales estadounidenses en los países de América Latina y del Caribe.
The best way to fight and confront this globalization is to be united in solidarity.
Debe de continuar consolidándose la lucha contra la guerra y porque los pueblos puedan vivir en paz y que la globalización no sea económica, sino que sea una globalización solidaria y de hermandad.
So we'd like to continue this struggle against globalization so that we, to end the war, that we may be united in peace.
Continuamos abrogando por la paz con justicia social para todos los pueblos del mundo.
So that we may continue the struggle and the struggle to obtain a social justice movement for peace.
Pedimos de las comunidades de los Estados Unidos se movilicen y rechacen el Plan Colombia, ya que es un plan de guerra contra nuestro pueblo.
We ask that the communities of the United States unite and combat and fight against the policy which is called Plan Colombia, a plan of war.
Que continuamos haciendo grandes denuncias contra la política globalizante de los imperios.
That you continue that we continue to fight and combat those policies, the imperial policies of globalization.
La paz y la justicia social de los pueblos no se alcanza con el incremento de la guerra y el incremento de las masacres de los pueblos.
Peace will not be reached with the continuation of the militarization and the violence in Colombia.
Por eso decimos, no más guerras en el mundo, viva la paz con justicia social.
For this reason we say, no more war, long live social justice, peace.
No más guerra contra los pueblos del mundo. Muchas gracias por escucharnos.
No more war against the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Edgar, and thank you, Tom, translation. Now the hard part. When I was volunteered to make a speech today, about 2 weeks ago, I started worrying about it, continued worrying about it for the past 2 weeks. Didn't sleep last night, trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to say. I'm a university lecturer, I should be better at this, but this is different. I'm going to try to get some things across to people. I hope you'll bear with me. There's going to be some things that I'm not quite sure how they're going to come out, first off. One, we need to remember our history, our VVAW's history. Why are we here? Why did we, next year's our 35th anniversary. Why have we been around for 35 years? Why have we had Veterans Day events like this for the past 30 years? Simple answer, wars don't end. Wars haven't ended. We thought we were going to be the last generation of veterans when we organized ourselves in 1967. We thought we were it. We thought once we came home and showed people what war was and how we were lied into wars, that this all people needed to know, and then it would end. It didn't. It hasn't ended. It hasn't ended for people around the world. It didn't end with the Gulf War, and now we're dropping bombs on people in Afghanistan, who supposedly are the reason why the attacks on the World Trade Center took place. We need to ask these questions pretty regularly. VVAW started as an organization mainly made up of enlistees. Most of us who joined thought we were doing the right thing. We thought we were fighting for this country. 75% of our membership are combat vets. We put on the uniform, we believed what we were told, we went off and served. We quickly found out that wasn't the truth. What we were serving in Vietnam was a war against a peasant population that had been trying to fight for their independence for thousands of years. Nobody ever told us that. Angered us, brought us home. We decided we wanted to try to do something about it. We need to remember that the origins. Also on Veterans Day, we need to remember people like my father. My father is now 85 years old. In 1944, he was drafted at the age of 28. I was 2 years old when he was in the Battle of the Bulge. He celebrated my second birthday in the Battle of the Bulge, being overrun. He's at home now. He doesn't talk about this very much. When he does talk about it, and Barry has seen this, when he does talk about it over the past 10 or 15 years, he's back there. Just like many of our comrades, when they talk about their experiences in Vietnam, are back there. We need to remember people like that. We need to remember our fathers, our uncles, who served in World War II, and served, they had a fight against an enemy that was putting people in ovens. War in Vietnam, as Barry's father told him, the war in Vietnam was a war against peasant farmers who just wanted to be left alone. What's the war in Afghanistan about? The war in Afghanistan is about terrorism. Are the people in Afghanistan responsible for the terrorist acts, the horrible terrorist acts that were carried out against the people in New York and Washington, D.C.? We also have to remember the people who died in the World Trade Centers were not just Americans. There were people that lived and worked in the World Trade Centers from 80 different countries around the world. This was an international act of terror. It was not just against us. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of our friends in New York and New Jersey lost friends and co-workers in those attacks. One of my students lost her closest cousin in that attack. And she came and talked to my class the day after she had finally learned that her cousin had died. She came and expressed in tears to this class how horrible she felt about this, and how her 16-year-old brother now wanted to join the military and kick somebody's ass. She didn't want that to happen. She didn't want her cousin's death to be used as an excuse for her brother to kill people or to be killed. We need to be clear on what we're opposing here. We're not opposing justice. We want justice to be carried out against the people who carried out these terrorist attacks. We want the people responsible to be caught and brought to justice. We don't want the people of Afghanistan or the people of Iraq or the people of Iran to be paying the price for this. It is expanding, folks. We need to be clear about this. Bombing Afghanistan is not going to end it. Now we're being told maybe it'll end this year. Maybe it'll end in 2 years. The people in the administration don't even know what they're doing. Of course, that shouldn't be new to us, those of us who've paid attention over the years. And now we've got Newsweek magazine telling us in last week's issue, we should feel sorry for President Johnson because he went through such torment in trying to decide to send people to a war he knew we couldn't win. Read that article. Think about what that means. Think about what that tells us about political pressure. Think about what that tells us about what goes on in politics and what Bush is doing. Because Bush is living through the military experiences that he couldn't have himself by sending other people off to war. We at VVAW, we've got people in the military. We've got members who are serving in active duty in the military. We have to worry about them. We have to remember what they're being asked to do and what they're probably thinking about right now. I know this is kind of rambling, but I'm trying to get you across a sense that we are for carrying out justice here. We are for going after the people that need to be gone after, the people who are directly responsible, but that should not be an excuse to go to war, to bomb innocent civilians, to produce more terrorists. Anybody who's looked at any of the bombing studies that have been done over years, bombing doesn't get people to quit. Bombing makes people more angry. That was true in Germany, it was true in Vietnam, it'll be true here too. We need to pay attention to that. I want to go over, I don't know if everybody's got a copy of the new issue of the paper, The Veteran. If you don't have it, we'll make sure that everybody gets one. I'm not asking you to read it, this is not a pedagogic device, but I want to go over the basic points that statement says. just to clarify some of the things that we're asking for. First off, it should be clear by now, we condemn the criminal acts of September 11th and demand that those responsible be held accountable and brought to justice. We mourn for the victims and offer our heartfelt sorrow and sympathy to the families and friends of those we lost. We condemn the bigotry against Arabs, bigotry and violence against Arabs, Muslims, and immigrants, which threaten these communities because of their race, nationality, and religion. We oppose efforts to curtail our basic civil liberties and democratic freedoms, and we must defend the Constitution from those who are undermining it. We do not believe that militarism and war will provide justice or security, and oppose U.S. military intervention in Afghanistan or other countries. A couple of additional points to kind of elaborate those things. We have to pay attention to what Congress has done in passing the USA Patriot Act of 2001. They took the name USA Patriot and then they put words together to fit that acronym. That's what it's called, the USA Patriot Act of 2001. It's all about pertaining our civil liberties. It's all about freeing us, the FBI and the other intelligence agencies, to go after who they deem to be terrorists. And I hope I'm not going to be making anybody nervous here, but VVAW was on one of those terrorist lists in the 1960s and 1970s. We remember being called terrorists. We need to think about who's going to make this definition? Who are they going to go after? We also need to pay attention to the fact that a whole new generation of young people are actively engaged, very quickly actively engaged in trying to oppose this war, trying to figure out what we can do to end it, what we can do to change the circumstances that cause these kinds of conflicts. There's a conference going on this weekend at DePaul University. There's events going on in California. There's events going on all over this country that are bringing new people, new young activists into activism to try to oppose war. We need to support them. We need to try to find some ways to share our experience with them. But we also need to be clear about not being condescending and not telling them, oh, this is the way we did it way back in the day. We need to be clear on who we are, what we can share, and what we should just step back and let them do. I guess in the end, when we get together on days like this and when we get together on Memorial Day, we are remembering the work that we've done in the past. We are remembering the people who fell in wars on all sides. We are remembering the people who have fallen over the years in social justice struggles, like the struggle that our friends from Colombia are currently engaged in, the struggles that people in Vieques are now engaged in, trying to stop the bombing that's going on in Vieques, the Navy test bombing. We need to be aware of the connections that we have. The connections that we have of veterans of war, the connections that we have of veterans of anti-war. And many of us are the same. So please try to remember what this day is about. I gotta say something about the flags. That was something that I wasn't sure about. Got a lot of people flying flags. Flying them wrong in many cases. Those of us who know something about how the flag should be displayed are usually a little upset, even though we don't fly the flags ourselves. We've got flags on everything. We've got flags on SUVs. We've got flags flying from buildings. We've got whole office buildings. My sister works in an office, and she says, Joe, every day I've got to stare out the window that's covered with American flags. She's sickened by this. It devalues what the flag might mean. There are flags that are meaningful. There's a flag that Barry has in his home, which is a flag that covered his brother's coffin when he brought his brother home, his nephew home from Vietnam. We need to understand that not everybody flying that flag is a right-wing, hardcore conservative. People are looking for something to bring them together. The United We Stand idea can be useful. We're united right now where we stand. We need to be clear that not everybody wearing a flag is the enemy. Not everybody wearing a uniform is the enemy. So we need to be clear on what we're standing for. We need to be clear on who the enemy is. We need to be fighting for justice, and we need to be fighting against war. Thank you. Sorry I'm so rambling, but it is Sunday morning. Next, I want to introduce another guest of ours from Colombia, Samuel Morales, who's the president of the CUT Arauca, who will talk about the Santo Domingo massacre, where 3 years ago the Colombian Air Force killed 19 innocent civilians, including 7 children, with U.S. helicopters and bombs. VVAW helped in that investigation. Samuel.
Muy buenos días para todos los presentes.
Good morning to all of you present.
Gracias a los veteranos de Vietnam se pudo descubrir un crimen de lesa humanidad que cometió las fuerzas militares de Colombia en Santo Domingo, Arauca, donde murieron 18 personas y 7 niños.
Okay, thank you to the Vietnam veterans, especially the Vietnam veterans who took place, who went to Santo Domingo, Arauca, and discovered pieces of fragment bombs, which proved that U.S. involvement in the bombing, which killed 18 civilians, including 7 children.
Por esta gran labor resaltamos la encomiable tarea que tienen los veteranos de Vietnam en seguir luchando en busca de la paz y en rechazar las guerras en todo el mundo.
So again, we are united with you in the struggle against war and in our search for peace.
En nuestro país, con la ayuda militar de los Estados Unidos y el entrenamiento de los militares en las escuelas de las Américas, en nombre de la paz, se asesinan mucha población civil.
With the U.S.-American involvement in the name of peace, in the name of fighting the drug war, many people have been killed.
En los 2 últimos años se han realizado más de 1000 masacres que han arrojado más de 6.500 muertes de civiles en nombre de la paz.
In the name of peace, over the last years, there have been over 1,000 massacres, leaving 6,500 victims.
Las armas, los aviones, los helicópteros que fueron donados por los Estados Unidos para el control del narcotráfico son utilizados para lanzar bombas, para ametrallar los campos, y así mueren muchos campesinos, mujeres y niños.
So the armaments that have been given to Colombia by the United States, the planes, the helicopters, the bombs, have been used directly against the civilian population.
La utilización de herbicidas fuertes como el glifosato, de bacterias y hongos para erradicación de cultivos ilícitos están causando grandes estragos en la humanidad colombiana.
So the fumigations that have been donated, the dust croppers, the planes that emit the fumigations, have done serious damage to the population of Colombia.
Por eso, hoy contamos con su fortaleza, con su labor, para que desde Colombia nosotros tenemos el apoyo solidario y la fuerza para seguir luchando con ustedes contra la guerra, contra los asesinatos, contra las bombas y en busca de una justicia social.
So we're united with you in the struggle against war and the search for peace, so that we may reach a peace in Colombia as well.
La guerra llama más guerra. La guerra trae solamente desolación. La guerra tiene solamente llanto. La guerra solo deja víctimas, no deja cosas buenas.
So war begets war. War does nothing more than create victims. It is not a solution.
Este es el mensaje que juntos debemos llevar al mundo. Debemos rechazar desde estos espacios el apoyo que tiene el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, el apoyo que da el Congreso hacia Colombia en ayuda militar, en más bombas, en más bacterias, en más venenos, en más aviones que solo contribuyen a destruir el mundo y la gran ecología de Colombia.
So we ask for your support to reject the military assistance that's been given to our country, to stop the bombs, to stop the military armaments, to stop the poisons that fall from the sky.
Esperamos que desde Chicago, con los veteranos de Vietnam, con el gran cúmulo de gente, llamemos los vientos de paz y no llamemos los vientos de guerra.
We're hoping that you are part of the winds of change to create peace and justice and not war.
Rechazamos y esperamos que tener la solidaridad mundial, como aquí en los Estados Unidos, en la Escuela de las Américas, se entrenan los más grandes violadores de los derechos humanos, los que realizan los asesinatos, las masacres, los descuartizamientos del pueblo colombiano.
So we ask for your united solidarity to reject the School of Americas that has trained Colombian troops to kill and massacre our civilian population.
Este año en Colombia nos han asesinado a más de 126 líderes sociales por parte de grupos paramilitares por hacer estos espacios de progresismo y por defender la libertad.
In the first 10 months of this year, already 126 leaders, union leaders, have been assassinated.
Es por eso que denunciamos cómo en Colombia se violan los derechos humanos por parte de la sexta división creada por las fuerzas militares o los grupos paramilitares llamados autodefensas de Colombia.
And so we reject the military aid, which seemingly is helping the so-called 6th Brigade. In Colombia, there exist 5 military brigades. The infamous 6th Brigade is considered the paramilitaries, which have been documented strong links to the Colombian military, which is supplied by the United States.
Por esto debemos luchar por una igualdad social, por una paz duradera y decir no a la guerra, no a la intervención mundial, sí a la vida. Muchas gracias.
For this, we ask no to the war, no to U.S. or outside intervention, and yes to peace. Thank you.
We need to make sure that we're not distracted by the war coverage in Afghanistan and the Middle East, that we pay attention to what's going on in Colombia. We need to pay attention to what's going on around the world. We need to pay attention to what's going on in Vieques and elsewhere. The distraction of those of us who just sit and kind of stare at CNN for hours on end, we need to make sure that CNN doesn't determine what our world is. We also need to make sure that the kind of claims that are being made from the political leaders in our country that the terrorists are engaged with us in a war against civilization, the United States doesn't get to define what civilization is. Look at our history, look at our military interventions, and ask yourself if that's a sign of a civilized power. We need to put pressure on our political leaders to try to get the United States to begin acting like a member of the international community and not the big brother of the world. If we can do all that, and it's going to take a while, we'll get older and grayer, but there's young people that are coming behind us, there's young people that are going to give us more energy, there's young people that keep us young. If we can do all that, then maybe we can finally stop having Veterans Days. But it doesn't look like it's going to happen too soon. I want to thank everybody for coming. Before everybody runs away, please, I'm going to ask Tom McGregor. Oh, that's right. Excuse me, Tom. Got something that I'll just totally blow this. I want to bring Barry up here. We have a little surprise.
This is the 30th year that we've held Memorial or Veterans Day straight, and so next year, when the street's back in order, we're gonna have a better record than the Revolutionary War statue in the Vietnam Vets Memorial. So that's something to be proud of. VVAW exists not because we have money. VVAW exists because we have people that are willing to put themselves on the line, doing what we used to call shit work, but it's the essential work that keeps organizations going. We don't have money. We put in for a grant one time. The person said, well, we're not giving it to you, not because we don't love the work that you're doing, but we know that you'll keep paying your phone bills and keep doing the things to keep fighting for a better life in this country and abroad. And so this year at the national meeting, we decided to honor someone with a new award, a brand new award, a first award, for the person that has contributed the most to keeping VVAW and the work around veterans and peace and justice alive. And so we voted to give the Winter Soldier Award to Jeff Machota because he does our books and he doesn't charge us anything, and we never get in the goddamn bank statements on time. And we have to call PETA again and again and again to get Pete to mail it to him. And yet, he's going to make sure that Joe and me and Dave Klein and John Zutz and Pete don't go to jail. And he puts this paper out, this wonderful paper that you see. You all remember when I used to put it out, right? Everybody across the country would look at the paper like, where's Waldo, to find all the misspellings. And the person that would find the most misspellings would get to go to the next demonstration free. Well, realizing that a paper should actually have things spelled right and be put in order and maybe even have a little English that made sense to someone besides me, Jeff volunteered and took the paper over. We have a daily email and a website that he keeps up with every day. Other people pay thousands and thousands of dollars, and he does this for nothing. We exist the way we do because of his work. So, we have, come up here, Jeff.
Hold it up.
Read it. Hold it up. Up. It says Vietnam Veterans Against the War, and has our wonderful symbol, Winter Soldier Service Award, presented to Jeff Machota in recognition of your dedication to peace, justice, and veterans' rights. Voted on by the National Steering Committee, October 27th, 2001, and the first recipient. No, you don't get to go yet. Jeff also works with the Progressive Resort Action Network, and I'm not going to name everything else he works with, and is an absolutely dedicated person to making the world a better place. But, so we collected the money, and there was some left over, so we could have given him some money, but we decided instead of giving him something not worthwhile, we have Jeff's favorite beer, and the type that doesn't mean that's what we think of him, that's what this guy likes. Thank you, and don't forget, please come over to my place. I've got vegetarian, and we're not over, but we got vegetarian and meat and chili, and we also have hot dogs and whatever else you can think of.
Thank you. Thanks, Barry. I'm glad Barry was awake this morning to remember this. I want to ask Tom McGregor to come up to the podium right now. Tom is a Franciscan lay minister, lay missioner with the Franciscan Mission Service, and I'm going to ask Tom to kind of give us a closing for today.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you all. I will be real brief. I live in Colombia. I live in Medellin. And let me tell you, it's a lot warmer there. So in the interest of getting in that sun, I will be extremely brief here. I've been asked to say a couple words to remember this solemn day, because this is a solemn day for veterans. And it's a solemn day for many people who are remembering those victims of war, the people fighting in wars. So let me just say a few people, if anyone wants to throw out people to think of, we'll do that, and then we'll finish off with a minute of silence. So first, in thinking of the people of Colombia, we want to remember the people who have suffered from massacres, many, many victims. We want to remember the people who are tortured. There are just a countless number of people who are tortured by forces all the time. We want to remember those people forcibly displaced from their homes, which again numbers well over 2, if not 3 million people, who have literally been forced from their homes and end up in small barrios with very little money and nothing to live on. We want to remember all the victims, and we want to remember the people of different wars as well, especially the Vietnam veterans here. We want to remember the victims of New York, of the Pentagon too. Washington, D.C. always seems to get overlooked when we speak of September 11th. Anyone else, please call out. The people of Afghanistan, especially the civilian population.
Children of Iraq.
Children of Iraq.
Si ustedes quieren recordar a los miles de muertos
Of the millions that have been killed in the war in Colombia and the wars around the world.
Joseph Cole, the homeless Chicago resident. Joseph Cole, a homeless person shot to death in the streets.
Joseph, a homeless person who was shot to death. And we remember all the homeless, especially the homeless from wars.
People of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Nicaragua.
The people of Central America, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Honduras, Guatemala. People of Chiapas and their struggles. Bueno, let's take 1 minute of silence on this busy street. Bueno, thank you and God bless.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Edgar. Thank you, Samuel, for being with us today. And thank all of you for coming out on this strange day and strange place. We'll see many of you on Memorial Day, I assume. Thank you again, folks. Bye.